Hi, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we have a new life story. Let's begin.
I stood at the edge of the hall, where polished marble floors met towering glass windows overlooking the frozen skyline of Haldenport, a city that glittered with cold ambition and luxury boutiques I couldn't afford to enter. My half-brother Luca twirled his bride under a chandelier the size of my first apartment, both of them radiant and oblivious. Her gown, custom-made by a Parisian designer, shimmered with opal beadwork. It had cost more than I earned in a year managing inventory at a logistics firm. As champagne flutes clinked around the ballroom, the ice sculptures of cranes and cherry blossoms slowly melted beneath the warmth of 100 murmuring guests. Luca looked like a prince out of a storybook, all charm and symmetry, his smile wide enough to crack the ice beneath our feet. Beside him, Amara, his new wife, laughed the same lilting laugh I had heard just 9 months ago on a stormy afternoon when she sat across from me at an overpriced cafe in downtown Haldenport, clutching my hand with tearful eyes. "I just need a small favor, Sarah," she had said. "A short-term loan. I promise I'll pay it back. You're the only one I trust." I believed her. Of course I had. Back then, she was just Luca's girlfriend. I didn't know her well, but she seemed sincere, desperate even. And I was the dependable one. The fixer, the sister who always answered the phone, who patched things up when our father forgot birthdays or our mother drank too much. I had perfect attendance at a job I hated. I paid my bills on time. I flossed. I was the sucker, and I didn't even know it yet. Now, watching Amara and Luca bask in their union under golden lights, I felt the weight of my decision like an anchor around my chest. I hadn't seen a cent of repayment. My calls went unanswered. My emails ignored. Meanwhile, interest accrued like mold in the corners of my life. The DJ shifted to a slow song. A hush of admiration swept through the room as Luca pulled Amara close. He whispered something in her ear that made her smile melt into something softer, more private. Around them, their guests, financiers, real estate moguls, a smattering of minor celebrities, sipped aged wine and exchanged industry secrets behind polished smiles. I downed my third glass of sparkling water. Couldn't afford alcohol tonight. Couldn't afford anything, really. My credit score had cratered last month, and just this morning, my landlord had slipped another friendly reminder under my door. I hadn't told anyone, least of all my family. We weren't the kind who shared struggles. We papered them over with Instagram filters and passive-aggressive toasts. "Sarah, there you are!" My cousin Tara, in a sequined lavender dress that hugged her surgically perfect frame, swept in with arms open. She smelled like expensive perfume and rehearsed confidence. "I've been looking for you," she said, kissing the air near my cheek. "Come, meet Arjun. He just closed the Durant deal. You'll love him." I forced a smile. Maybe in a bit. Her eyes narrowed slightly before she shrugged and flounced off, already forgetting me. That was the way of our family. Attention flitted from person to person like bees in a dying orchard, always chasing the sweetest bloom. I slipped outside. The night air hit me like clarity. The rooftop garden was empty except for a waiter lighting the last of the lanterns. Below, the city buzzed with silent urgency. Trams gliding along tracks, billboards blinking ads for designer watches and exclusive dating apps. I leaned against the stone balustrade and let my breath fog the air. My heels ached. My stomach grumbled. The dress I wore, borrowed from a friend who didn't know I'd likely never return it, pinched at the waist. And still, I'd come tonight, because not showing up would have raised eyebrows, would have started whispers. And in our family, whispers were currency. I thought about the email I drafted earlier this week, but hadn't sent. Dear Luca, congratulations on your upcoming wedding. I wanted to remind you that the loan I co-signed for Amara is now 3 months delinquent. It had felt petty, tasteless. But what else could I do? My credit card was maxed out. My savings were gone. My pride was the only asset I had left. I heard the door behind me open. I didn't turn. I knew the footsteps. Slow, confident, expensive. I was wondering when you'd slink away, Luca said. He came to stand beside me, his tuxedo immaculate. He didn't shiver in the cold. His cologne smelled like cedar and indifference. I needed air, I said flatly. He studied me. You look tired. Thanks. It's been a rough year. He leaned on the railing, fingers drumming. Look, if this is about the loan, it is. He sighed, as if my financial ruin were a mild inconvenience. Amara told me about that. You shouldn't have done it. She asked for help. Yeah, well, she asks a lot of people for help. I turned to him. You're her husband now. And? And maybe you could take some responsibility? He tilted his head, a smirk flickering. This isn't the time or place, Sarah. Let's not ruin the night. I swallowed hard. Too late for that. He pushed off the railing. I'll talk to her, okay? But maybe don't expect miracles. With that, he walked back inside, the music swelling as he re-entered the ballroom like royalty. I stood there another 10 minutes, watching the city, watching my breath dissolve into nothing. And for the first time in months, I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because the part of me that cared about being seen as good, as loyal, as the family's invisible backbone, was beginning to die. Something colder was growing in its place. The next morning, I was back in my apartment, a fourth-floor walk-up with water-stained ceilings and neighbors who argued through paper-thin walls. I stared at the spreadsheet on my laptop, trying to make the numbers work. They didn't. They hadn't for a while. Rent was due in 5 days. Utilities were overdue. I'd skipped groceries to cover a minimum credit card payment, and even my emergency fund, the pathetic few hundred I'd clung to for years, was gone, sacrificed last month to cover a sudden car repair. My Toyota was older than some of my coworkers. It rattled like it had secrets. I closed the laptop, the silence of the apartment heavy with shame. In the hallway, someone's baby cried. I envied the baby. Crying was allowed when you were small. When you were 33 and broke, it was a weakness. I pulled my coat on and headed to work. The bus was late again. The cold made my fingers ache. And the scarf I'd knit myself 2 winters ago did little to keep the wind out. I stood among a group of commuters, all heads down, all pretending their lives were under control, and tried to imagine a version of myself who didn't feel like an afterthought. At Sterling and Cross, a mid-tier logistics consultancy in the industrial belt of Haldenport, I was technically a supply chain analyst. In practice, I was a glorified crisis manager. Every day it was late shipments, missing invoices, customs delays, and irate clients who thought they were our only customer. My boss, Raymond, was in his mid-40s who wore cologne like armor and drank 7 coffees a day. He greeted me with a tight nod and a request to fix whatever happened with the Devereaux cargo manifest, then vanished into a conference room. I buried myself in spreadsheets and shipping logs, drinking the office's burnt coffee and pretending everything was fine. It was easier here, behind numbers and noise. People respected you when you were useful. At noon, my phone buzzed with a message from my bank, a declined transaction. I didn't even look at which one. I knew what it meant. I had nothing left. Not even room to breathe. That evening, I sat on my bed, scrolling through social media. My cousin Tara had posted a slideshow from the wedding. Luca and Amara smiling in front of fireworks, her parents holding crystal glasses high, and me in the background, caught mid-blink. I looked like a ghost haunting their fairy tale. The comments were full of compliments. Power couple goals. Amara looks like royalty. Luca finally found his queen. I stared at the screen until the words blurred, then threw my phone across the bed. I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't be the one who cleaned up everyone else's mess while mine rotted under the rug. I opened my laptop and pulled up the loan account. Balance? $38,267, overdue by 91 days. I stared at the number. My heart beat like it was trying to escape. I clicked Contact Support, but I already knew what they'd say. They'd remind me that as the cosigner, I was fully responsible. That defaulting would ruin my credit for years. That wage garnishment wasn't off the table. I drafted a new email to Luca. This time, it was angrier. Luca, I've given you and Amara more than enough time. This is affecting my livelihood. But I stopped midway. He wouldn't care. He'd glance at it between yacht trips and delete it. He was always good at deleting things he didn't want to see. I thought about calling Amara, but she'd changed her number. Of course she had. I stared at the blinking cursor, then opened a blank document. What if I didn't beg? What if I made them pay attention? An idea crept into my mind. Small, ugly, but persistent. They owed me. And if they wouldn't repay what they took, maybe it was time I took something back. Not money. I didn't have their passwords or access to hidden accounts, but I knew things. Things they had said to me in private long before they'd polished their lives into perfection. I knew, for example, that Amara had once confided in me about her job at a private concierge firm where she'd accidentally misused client privileges to attend a Fashion Week event, that she'd had an affair with one of the clients, a B-list actor whose name she made me promise not to repeat. I knew that Luca had borrowed money from our father's old business partner under shady pretenses, that he'd forged a few documents to secure early investors for his startup, now long dead. At the time, I had swallowed these confessions with the loyalty of someone who thought family secrets were sacred. Now they felt like currency. I closed the laptop, heart racing. Was I really considering this? Yes. Yes, I was. I didn't sleep that night. My mind buzzed with a strange new energy, equal parts fear and exhilaration. I wasn't a vengeful person by nature. I'd spent most of my life trying not to rock the boat. But now? Now I was capsized, drowning, and no one had thrown a rope. So maybe it was time I started swimming the other way, toward the truth, no matter who it pulled under with me. By morning, I had a plan. Not perfect, not even well-formed, but I had a direction, and that was more than I'd had in months. I called in sick to work. Raymond sounded irritated but unsurprised. The first thing I did was dig through my old external hard drive. Years ago, I'd backed up all my phone data onto it, including the voice memos Amara had sent me during one of her melodramatic spirals. I found them in a folder labeled MISC, buried beneath blurry vacation photos and PDFs of old resumes. I clicked on one. I swear, if Julian ever finds out about me and Colin, I'm dead. Not like dead, just he'll ruin me. He knows people in publishing, and you know how fast reputations burn in this city. I copied it to my desktop. One down. I sorted through the rest. Notes about drug-fueled parties at high-end villas, vague mentions of escort clients she'd once entertained for tips, cryptic comments about falsified invoices at her old job. None of it screamed smoking gun, but it was a start. Enough to spook her if I played it right. Then there were the emails. I had archived conversations from the year Luca had launched his fintech startup, Ignis. It had failed spectacularly, but in the months leading up to its collapse, he'd asked me to review his investor pitch decks. One attachment caught my eye. Version 7 Final. I opened it. Pages of inflated user growth, projected revenue that doubled every quarter, and testimonials from beta testers I later learned were his college friends. One quote was attributed to A. Coleman, CTO of Arcona Ventures. I remembered asking him about it. Arcona had denied any association. Luca had waved me off. He said, "Everyone polishes a little. It's part of the game." Polishing. That's what he called lying. I compiled everything into a neat little package. Audio clips, emails, PDFs of questionable contracts. I wasn't ready to send it anywhere, not yet. But just knowing I had it made me feel powerful for the first time in years. Now I needed to send a message, one they couldn't ignore. I created a new email address, anonymous, encrypted, untraceable enough to make them squirm. Then I wrote a single sentence. "You've both had a very comfortable year. Time to return the favor." I attached one of the voice clips, Amara's confession about the client affair, and hit send. I knew her well enough to be sure she'd open it immediately. The subject line was too vague, the sender too curious. I sent a second message an hour later. This time, to Luca. From a different account. Still polishing, or just pretending there's no mess? Attached was the fake testimonial slide. Then I turned off both accounts and waited. By sunset, my phone rang. Blocked number. I answered. "Sarah?" Amara's voice hissed, low and furious. "What is the hell is this?" I took a slow breath. "I think you know." "You're threatening me? After everything I did for you?" "Everything you did for me?" I laughed. "You mean destroying my credit? Ignoring my messages? Ghosting the loan I risked my future on? You don't understand. Luca was supposed to..." "But he didn't. And neither did you." A beat of silence. "What do you want?" she said, voice tight. "I want the debt paid. In full. Within 2 weeks." "That's impossible." "Then find a way. You always seem to land on your feet." Another pause. Then, "You think blackmail is going to make me help you?" "This isn't blackmail. Not yet." I hung up. 3 minutes later, Luca called. This time, I let it ring out. He tried again. And again. By the 5th call, I answered. "What are you doing?" he said. No greeting. "Something I should have done months ago." He was quiet. Then, "You think you can bully us? That anyone would believe you?" "I don't need them to believe me. I just need you to know I can make you very uncomfortable." His voice dropped. "I don't know who you think you are. I'm the woman who saved your ass when no one else would, and now I'm the one who's done playing nice." He cursed under his breath. "I'll talk to Amara. You have 11 days. Or what? Or your world starts to unravel, just like mine did." The next few days were a blur of cautious hope and paranoia. I waited. I watched. I refreshed my bank account daily, hoping to see a miracle deposit. Instead, I got silence. Then, on the 8th day, a letter arrived. Hand-delivered. No return address. Just my name on a cream-colored envelope. Inside, a check for $20,000 and a note in Luca's handwriting. "This is all you'll get. Take it or leave it." No apology, no acknowledgement, just a dare. I stared at the check. It would cover half the debt, give or take. Enough to stop the bleeding, not enough to heal. I could cash it, walk away, start over, slowly. Or I burned the check. Literally. I held it over my kitchen sink and watched it curl into ash, the flame quick and final. Because this wasn't about the money anymore. It was about principle. The check's ashes swirled down my sink like the last embers of a dying lie. I'd expected to feel regret, guilt, maybe even panic. Instead, I felt something steadier, resolve. They thought they could pay me off like a nuisance fee, like a fly they could swat off their pristine lives. But I wasn't a nuisance. I was the reckoning they'd spent years dodging. I had bent over backward to be the dependable one, the fixer, the bridge between dysfunction and denial. But that role, it had expired. It was time to stop negotiating and start exposing. I took a few days to gather myself. I didn't rush. I wanted to be precise. Amara had always curated her image like a luxury brand, aspirational, untouchable. She'd rebranded herself over the years from a struggling assistant to a rising socialite turned luxury consultant. Her LinkedIn was a masterclass in reinvention. Invented job titles, vague experience, glowing recommendations from people who mysteriously didn't exist on any other platform. She'd made a name for herself in Heldenport's elite circles by offering discretion and access, private concierge work, high-end event planning, influencer connections, a gatekeeper to the illusion of wealth. And Luca? He'd moved on from failed startups to being the face of an executive coaching firm. He lectured on podcasts about resilience and mindful leadership. I had to laugh. If burning bridges counted as mindfulness, he was a Zen master. I started small. I sent an anonymous tip to a freelance gossip columnist I'd met once at a networking brunch. A single line. Ask Amara Langston about the Paris client and the stolen credentials. 2 days later, a blind item appeared on Shaded Glass, a blog that whispered rumors in polished prose. Which local lifestyle queen is sweating over an NDA violation involving a European dignitary and a misplaced guest pass during Paris Fashion Week? Our sources say the veil of discretion might soon unravel. The Heldenport elite were addicted to scandal, as long as it didn't hit too close to home. The post didn't name her, but it was enough to start whispers. Next, I uploaded screenshots of falsified investor testimonials from Luca's Ignis pitch deck to a private whistleblower forum focused on startup fraud. Not public, not yet, but visible to the right eyes. Journalists, rival entrepreneurs, regulatory researchers. And then I waited. It didn't take long. Amara was the first to break. She showed up outside my apartment on a Monday afternoon in February, wrapped in a camel trench coat and sunglasses like a starlet trying not to be seen. "Sarah," she hissed when I opened the door, glancing over her shoulder like she was being followed, "we need to talk." I stepped aside. "Make it quick." Inside, she paced my narrow living room, looking more shaken than I'd ever seen her. Gone was the polished mask. Her lipstick was smeared, her voice trembled. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Do you want to destroy me?" "No," I said. "I want you to take responsibility." "You've made your point. The blog post, it's already costing me contracts." I raised an eyebrow. "Good. I'll bring cash." She reached into her designer purse and pulled out a thick envelope. 15,000. All I could get without alerting Luca. I didn't touch it. "This is still short." "I'll get the rest," she said, her eyes pleading. "Just stop leaking things, please." You could have done this months ago. I know. She sat down, deflating. We didn't think you'd go this far. I almost laughed. You thought I'd disappear? No, we thought you were. She stopped, trying to find a word that didn't insult me. Weak. That's what she meant.
I'm not her anymore, I said. She nodded slowly. I can give you the rest in 2 weeks, I swear. I'll believe it when I see it. She stood. Are we done here? For now. As she left, I saw something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Not hatred, not fear. Respect. I deposited the cash the next morning, paid off one of the delinquent accounts. The bank emailed me with a subject line I hadn't seen in months. Thank you for your payment. It felt like breathing again. But Luca? He didn't come quietly. 3 days later, I got a cease and desist letter delivered to my office. The envelope was thick, legal stationery with embossed lettering. Inside was a 4-page letter from a firm I recognized, Wexler and Kane. Big names, big bark. Dear Ms. Dovell, it has come to our client's attention that you are in possession of confidential materials related to Ignis Ventures and its former affiliates. Blah, blah, legal threats, defamation. Any further dissemination of proprietary documents will be met with immediate legal recourse. I forwarded the letter to an old friend of mine, Alina, who had gone into public interest law after we graduated. We hadn't spoken in a year, but I remembered her saying, if you ever find yourself staring down a rich bastard and need someone in your corner, call me. I called. Elena, it's Sarah. I need a favor. An hour later, she called me back. This letter is trash, she said. Scare tactics. You haven't done anything illegal. I have receipts, I said, and they don't want them public. Then you have leverage. Use it. So I did. I drafted one final email to Luca. No threats, no venom, just clarity. Luca, I've received your lawyer's letter. I'm not intimidated. I've taken steps to ensure that if anything happens to me, financially or otherwise, the information I have will reach people who will make it very public. All I've asked for is what you owe me, nothing more. You have 10 days. After that, I stop holding back. Sarah. He didn't reply, but 2 days later, $18,267 hit my account from an LLC I didn't recognize. The remaining balance down to the dollar. I stared at the screen for a long time, not because I didn't believe it, but because I'd forgotten what victory felt like. The payment landed like a quiet exhale. No fanfare, no apology, just numbers on a screen. But they were mine. Finally. I sat on my worn couch, staring at the confirmation email, the glow of my laptop screen casting pale shadows on the walls. Outside, snow was falling softly across Haldenport, layering the city in silence. It should have felt like the end, like resolution, but all I felt was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix, but the kind that settles into your bones after years of carrying weight that was never yours. I had spent so long being the buffer between other people's bad decisions and the consequences they never wanted to face. Now, with the debt cleared and the threats withdrawn, all that remained was me, raw, unfiltered, unsure of what came next. I didn't celebrate. I didn't buy anything. I didn't even text anyone. The idea of sharing this with people who once said, "You're being dramatic," or "They're family, just forgive them," made my stomach turn. Instead, I opened my calendar and marked the date with one word: done. Then I closed the laptop, turned off the lights, and slept for 13 straight hours. The next week, I made small changes. I unsubscribed to newsletters I never read. I deleted half my social media apps. I stopped replying to family group chats filled with brunch plans and fake prayers. I cleaned out the hall closet and donated the suits I hadn't worn since the pandemic. I sold a pair of heels I hated. I dyed my hair. Nothing drastic, just a new tone. A shade that felt more like me. And for the first time in years, I stopped obsessing over what they thought. Luca, Amara, even my parents. The whole lot of them could hold their polished little gatherings without me. Let them miss my presence. or not. I applied for a position at a nonprofit that handled financial literacy education for underserved women. I didn't know if I'd get it. I lacked the formal experience, but I wrote the cover letter like a manifesto. I told them about what I'd survived, about what it meant to be financially betrayed by the people you trust the most, about how knowledge, even basic knowledge, could be armor. A week later, I got a call back. The woman on the phone, Maribel, sounded about my age, warm but sharp. "We were really moved by your letter," she said. "We'd love to meet." I didn't cry until after I hung up. 2 months later, I ran into Amara at a cafe near the university district. She was dressed down, sunglasses, hoodie, no makeup, and for a moment I thought she might pretend not to see me. But she didn't. She walked over slowly, hesitantly. "Sarah." I nodded. "Amara." She shifted on her feet. "You look different."
Freer, I said. She winced a little. I wanted to say thank you for not going further. I tilted my head. I wasn't bluffing. I know, that's what scares me. She gave a small, brittle smile. You were always the one with a conscience. No, I corrected. I was the one too afraid to fight back. She glanced away. I think about what I did a lot, about how I used you. I didn't say anything. I'm trying to fix things, with other people, with myself. Good. We stood there a moment, the noise of the cafe a distant hum. I'll leave you alone, she said finally. I'm glad you're okay. I'm better than okay. She walked away without another word. I watched her go, wondering if I believed her, wondering if it mattered. That summer, I took a trip by myself to the coast, a small, quiet village 3 hours south. I rented a cottage with creaky floors and wildflowers outside the windows. No Wi-Fi, just me, the ocean, and time. I brought books, I took long walks, I ate fruit from the local market and left my phone off for days. And I wrote, pages and pages. Not for anyone else, just for me. About debt, about silence, about how many women live entire lives absorbing blame like sponges, until we finally learn to wring ourselves out. On the last night, I stood on the shore as the sun set, the water cold around my ankles. I thought of everything I'd lost, but I also thought of everything I'd stopped giving away. My time, my guilt, my power. When I got back to Haldenport, there was a letter waiting for me. No logo, no return address, just my name in small, blocky handwriting. Inside, a single note. I'm sorry for all of it. No signature, but I recognized the handwriting. Luca. I didn't keep the letter, but I didn't tear it up either. I let it drift into the wind outside my window, the paper curling midair like it was being freed. Like me.